Last week, I told you about how Tiffany Henyard slithered off the hook with the FOIA situation. But today, we're going to talk about the situations that she is probably not going to get out of. What is up, gang? Carlton Flowers here with the Go Political channel, and we've got an update for you today in continuation of our coverage with the action of our former SuperMayor Tiffany Henyard. In the last video, I brought you the discouraging news about how she slithered off the hook and got away with that little stunt that she pulled with the FOIA request that never got answered with the Illinois Edgar County Watchdogs, which, by the way, I'm going to start calling them the Edgar County Hound Dogs. I'll tell you why later on in the video. But in today's update, we're going to talk about the things, the situations that she will probably not likely be able to get herself out of. She's going to remain in the hot water. And we're going to talk about the status of the FBI case, misappropriation of federal grant funds, and other infractions that are still looming over her head like a dark storm cloud. Okay, so we'll just kick this off and discuss the current status of this ongoing FBI investigation. I will be sharing with you references from the news releases, give you all of my sources so you can read along too and check up on my work, and then you can comment. And if you want to fill in any new information, please do so in the comments section. Now, the investigation overview. The FBI is still investigating our former SuperMayor Tiffany Henyard for alleged financial mismanagement, including potential misappropriation of federal grant funds, such as the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds, among other things. And as of the January 2025 report that was submitted by former Mayor Chicago Lori Lightfoot, commissioned by the Dolton Board of Trustees, she gave a detailed misuse of taxpayer dollars, unspent ARPA funds, and outlined the failure of Tiffany Henyard to comply with the federal reporting requirements during her tenure. So the investigation began gaining traction in early 2024 with the FBI interviews and the subpoenas that were targeting Dolton and Thornton Township records. So the current status as of right now, July 25th, 2025, the FBI investigation is active, but it hasn't resulted in any public charges or indictments against Tiffany Henyard for misappropriating or allegedly misappropriating those federal grant funds. But sources confirm in April of 2024, the FBI did serve those subpoenas at Dolton Village Hall, requesting financial records, payments, expense reimbursements, those are going to get her into trouble, and credit card expenditures linked to the SuperMayor and her top assistant, Keith Freeman, and several others. And all of these things date back to 2021. So as I mentioned in the previous video, the Lori Lightfoot report highlighted $779,000 in credit card charges in 2023 alone. And then the budget deficit, of course, that grew to $3.65 million in the hole after being up in a surplus of $5.61 million before the SuperMayor came into power. So that has raised the concerns about the ARPA funds misuse. There is no update since April to confirm the specific progress on the ARPA funds aspect, but the investigation's broad scope suggests ongoing scrutiny of Henyard's financial decisions. And I might add that they were not good financial decisions. Now, a lot of people want to know what are the likelihood of charges coming down. So let's get into that. Now, the absence of the charges does not indicate that the investigation is concluded. As much as people want to say they've swept it under the rug, they've forgotten about it, or maybe they're going after Napoleon. No, this stuff is not going away. The FBI's focus on the financial records and the interviews with the township employees suggest a thorough probe. But federal investigations, they take months, they take years to yield indictments, especially for complex financial crimes, when people are cooking the books, scrambling the records, gaslighting the constituents, and creating constant chaos where it just throws everyone off the track so they can't keep up with what's going on. All right, so critical note on that. The lack of evidence, the lack of recent updates rather, may reflect the FBI's discretion in active investigations. All right, Henyard's claim that Lightfoot report is politically motivated. It suggests that she's probably going to contest everything, all of the allegations or allegations, and that will potentially delay the outcome. But delay doesn't mean that it's not going to come to a close. And I got to mention it again. Go back and look at the Kwame Kilpatrick story. That drug on for what, 13 years? And where did he end up? He ended up in jail. All right? That's how it ended. You don't get out from underneath the FBI scrutiny after they spend a lot of money, time, and effort in investigations, and especially when they're handing out subpoenas and indictments. Okay, so as promised, we're going to talk about the no-bid contracts, the kickbacks, and the misappropriation. All right? Will the FBI pursue Tiffany Henyard for no-bid contracts, for kickbacks, or misappropriating the Village of Dolton funds? Probably so. Now, we had a little discussion in the comments before where one of our longtime faithful members said, well, hey, no-bid contracts aren't against Illinois law. Well, not necessarily. However, when you're spending state funds and federal funds, it can be illegal or illegal, as Tiffany would say. It is illegal whenever you are over the threshold. If there is a contract and it's over $5,000 and it involves state or federal funds, you have to have competitive bidding. So yes, the laws were broken. Okay, so the no-bid contracts and the kickbacks. A February 2025 subpoena targeted the records related to a land development project allegedly linked to Tiffany Henyard's boyfriend. That's right, the $7 million man Kamal Woods, or seven-figure man, rather. I stand corrected there. He was a township employee living off of that fat six-figure income for an at-risk youth program that we have no evidence that ever existed. So the subpoena sought citations, code violations, and communications involving property owners and village personnel, suggesting scrutiny of no-bid contracts or favoritism. All right? So tell me that they're just ignoring that and sweeping it under the rug. No, they're not. They're already on top of it. Well, how about the business and charity allegations? Well, a second April 2024 subpoena focused on Tiffany Henyard's restaurant, Good Burger, or Good Booger, as I like to call it. Now, there's a property management company that was involved, a political fund, and a charity. Why do I mention that? Well, it's because that indicates to the FBI that there are potential kickbacks or misuse of public funds through those entities. I mean, we're all not dumb. We know why crooked politicians set up entities so that they can funnel money through it and not take it directly. That's how you kind of keep people thrown off the track when you're dealing in kickbacks. Well, I'll let you have this bid or this contract without bidding, but then I want you to make a donation over here to my Good Booger restaurant. Now, that's just alleged. But that's how it works. Now, how about the Keith Freeman connection? Well, subpoenas requested records on indicted village administrator Keith Freeman. He did get an indictment. So see, that's just more evidence, guys, that it's not going away. The indictment has been handed down. Keith is under the microscope, accused of false statements and unreported income in what? His bankruptcy petition, which suggests possible kickbacks or collusion with Tiffany Henyard. Oh yeah, he's going to be singing like a bird because I don't think he wants to spend time in jail away from his wife and kids. How about Thornton Township? Well, they have expanded the Thornton Township investigation. So by April of 2025, the probe into Thornton Township interviewing current and former employees about the financial spending during her tenure as a supervisor. So they're on both sides of this. They're digging into Dolton. They're digging into Thornton Township records. Everything is on the table. They are there. They're actively on it. So the current status, the FBI is actively pursuing all of these allegations, all right, with no reported conclusions as of July 25th, 2025. But the subpoenas were issued in April of 2024 and February 2025, and that indicates a broad investigation into financial misconduct, which includes the no-bid contracts and the potential kickbacks. Not getting out of that one, Tiffany. The probe also covers business licensing issues as the FBI requested records for 10 Dolton bars and restaurants, some of which were raided and closed by the police, suggesting possible retaliatory actions by the supermayor. Oh yeah, none of that's going away. And we know, dig back into those prior videos where we talked about all of those liquor licenses that were being held over those business owners' heads, almost forcing them out of business. And then they were finally issued, and one had to go to court, and there had to be a court order issued from a judge to get her to finalize that liquor license. Now, why do you think she was doing that? Well, it leads back to what I said before. Kickbacks. There's deals that are going on behind the scenes in the dark alleys where she's saying, hey, you want this license, you know what you got to do. That's alleged. Now, the likelihood of continued pursuit. Are they going to continue with pursuing all of this? Well, the FBI's issuance of multiple subpoenas and interviews with the township employees signals a serious and ongoing investigation. It's not hard to understand that, guys. The breadth of the records requested, which includes the financial reports, the payroll, the ordinances, all of that stuff, and the focus on Tiffany's associates. That would be the seven-figure man boyfriend Kamal Woods and Keith the Thief Freeman. That suggests that the FBI has built a case for potential charges related to what? Corruption, fraud, or kickbacks. Now, when you put your thumb on the minions, they start to squeal like a pig because they're trying to work their way up to the big boss. However, no indictments have been announced, and federal investigations of this nature, again, it can take a significant amount of time to resolve. Critical note, the involvement of high-profile figures like Lori Lightfoot, and we argued that until we were blue in the face, where half of you said it was a waste of time and money, and the other half said, no, she did do some good. Well, the high-profile figures and the public nature of the subpoenas increases the pressure on the FBI to act. All right, that's why I believe that Lori Lightfoot did do this whole investigation some good, but the lack of the charges indicates the need for more evidence or legal strategy. Maybe they are trying to get that legal strategy straight so that they can guarantee a conviction. That's how the FBI works, and it's why they have such a high conviction rate. Tiffany Henyard's ousting as the mayor and supervisor, SuperMayor, may reduce her influence, but it doesn't halt the investigation as it targets her past actions. She's not getting away with it. All right, let's keep it moving here. How about these other infractions that are under FBI scrutiny? Because it's not just the kickbacks and the misappropriated funds. Well, she's facing more accusations that go beyond the financial misconduct, and that includes the civil rights violations. The lawsuits allege that Tiffany Henyard violated employees' civil rights, and that would involve denying business licenses to people who were critical of her, like the barber, Tyrone Isom Jr. Do you remember that story? Yeah, well, that's a potential civil rights violation. Well, how about wrongful termination and the SA cover-up? You all know what I'm talking about there. So Tiffany Henyard is named in lawsuits for wrongful termination and allegedly covering up that big SA assault by a village employee who just happened to be on the board. And then there is another lawsuit that's going on that happened from the big board meeting brawl. You can go back and look at my Thornton Township Fight Night video if you want some good WWE entertainment. So there's a federal lawsuit that stems from that meeting where you had the big fight where Tiffany Henyard and Kamal Woods went to fisticuffs, and they had that big altercation involving Jedediah Brown. I did full coverage of that and talked about all of the individuals that were involved. So while the FBI's primary focus appears to be the financial misconduct, the April 2024 subpoenas also included records related to the business licensing, suggesting the scrutiny of civil rights or retaliatory actions on the part of the SuperMayor. And there's no direct evidence that the FBI is investigating the brawl or the SA allegations. I almost said allegations, but there are lawsuits that are there. So the broad scope of the probe could encompass the related misconduct if they are connected to public funds or authority abuse. When you abuse your authority from your position, that can muddle the water and drag those other little incidents, these other lawsuits that are not coming from the FBI, can draw it under that scrutiny. So the current status, these infractions are primarily addressed through civil lawsuits, okay? And as of April 2024, there are 22 civil lawsuits. 22. How is she going to find the time of day? She might as well just get a sleeping bag and just move into the court. You got 22 lawsuits, 22 civil lawsuits that you have to deal with, all right? Now, there's no confirmed FBI charges with those lawsuits, but again, that can muddle the water. So the FBI has a right to incorporate evidence from those cases if they relate to financial or corrupt practices, okay? But we don't have any confirmation of that yet, but it's still a dark cloud. The 22 civil lawsuits are a big dark cloud. And she's probably praying that the FBI doesn't rope one of those dark clouds and bring it in to the investigation that she is already in hot water for. All right, let's do a little bit of critical analysis and wrap it all up. First, the FOIA liability. Let's talk about that again. So Henyard's release from the contempt of court with the Edgar County Hound Dogs case does not absolve her responsibility for the systemic FOIA noncompliance during her tenure, because we had 80 total, 50 from Dolton, 30 from Thornton Township. So Dolton's liability for the penalties reflects the broader impact of her administration's catastrophic failures, and the taxpayers are going to have to pay the cost. And then we've got the Edgar County Hound Dogs just staying aggressive, holding their stance, and they want money out of the village of Dolton. And that's why I'm calling them the Edgar County Hound Dogs, okay? Because we all know that it was Tiffany Henyard. It was her fault. She's the one that should be, in our opinion, held liable for that document that she held up. And by the way, I'm going to tell you more about that document at the end of this video. Okay, the missing document. So hang with it. Hang with me all the way till the end. But the Edgar County hound dogs, instead of pushing to force her to be liable for the attorney's fees, they're going to go after the Village of Dolton. And to me, that's just not fair. And it makes it look like they're just after money. Because why are you going to punish the Village of Dolton? We have a new administration, Jason House. I guess they are not of my same belief that the current administration who is there and the people who are still on the board that were there before, they don't have the same viewpoint that they are not liable for those attorneys' fees. But I think that's kind of laying low on the ground like a hound dog when you're going to go after the folks that you know are not responsible for that. All right, because where's the document? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So do you actually think that Jason House and the board members are hiding that document? And do you think that they would not give it to you and choose to pay the $16,000 in attorney's fees and penalties? No. Okay, I don't understand that. Maybe someone listening, maybe you can post it in the comments below and tell me why the Edgar County hound dogs are right in forcing the current administration to pay those fees. How about Henyards Defenses? So Tiffany Henyard's claims of political motivation, regarding Lori Lightfoot and her report, and pleading the Fifth, she pulled the Fifth Amendment, invoked the Fifth Amendment in the FOIA case, suggests a strategy. Her strategy is what? It's to deflect from accountability. And that's what she does. That's what she's been doing the entire 4 years that she was in power. A black woman in power. That's her whole shtick, is deflect. So her ousting from office does reduce her ability to obstruct, but her legal team, led by Bo Biscuits Brindley, as Cooking with Frank likes to call her that. Shout out to Frank. He remains active in defending her. So I won't talk about Bo Biscuits Brindley and my opinion of him. Now, the public and the political context. All right, so the high-profile nature of Tiffany Henyard's controversies, which is amplified by the media and the Edgar County hound dogs, it ensures continued scrutiny. However, the FBI's discretion and the complexity of the financial crimes, as I had mentioned before, means that public updates, they might be limited until the charges are filed. And we're just going to have to wait for that. Just because we're not hearing every move that the FBI is making, it doesn't mean that they are abandoning the case. They're not dropping this, guys. I don't know why. So many people think that the FBI is just going to disappear. They don't have time for it, or as someone suggested, maybe they're just going to go after Napoleon Dynamite Harris because they think he's a better, higher profile target that they should attack. And that has nothing to do with this. It has nothing to do with this. And I'm not saying that I'm fully aware of infractions by Napoleon Dynamite Harris, because I'm not. I did do a video, go back and look at it if you didn't watch it, where I did talk about some dirty things that he did that I don't agree with, which tells me that the corruption could continue. Alleged corruption, all right? And that's just my opinion. But anyway, it doesn't mean that the FBI is looking for somebody else to take down just because we don't hear the daily reports. They're not going to show their hand, guys. It's a poker game. They're not going to tell us anything until the indictments come down. And I'm going to keep you posted along the way as it develops. All right, so what's coming up next? Coming up soon, I'm going to have to insert a video in between the next report that I promised, because we're going to have to show the video evidence of the missing document. Yeah. Shout out to Choose Compassion and Pudding Cup, because they helped me to find the actual timestamp of the January 2024 meeting when she held up that piece of paper. It's there. We're going to show it off. We're going to put a spotlight on it and let everybody see it. And we're going to talk about why the thing disappeared, and I'll share with you my opinion of that whole debacle. Okay, and then next, of course, we're going to have the video where we're going to get you up to speed on Kamal Woods and that $500,000 of federal grant money for the non-existent at-risk youth grant. All right, that's coming up next. So you want to tick the notification bell, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff so you don't miss it. And we will discuss it. So thanks for being here. Let me know if you appreciated and enjoyed this update, and post in the comments and fill me in if you have any new and additional information. That's all I got for this one. This is Carlton, and I am out.